Okay, we'll start with this for Ginny Fuchs. It's been almost 2 years since I last fought, and I'm so frustrated. Ginny Fuchs, a fighter who deserves a little slice of luck. Fuchs last fought in August of 2024. She fought through the pain barrier of a gruesome thumb injury to defeat the previously unbeaten Adelaida Maria Ruiz over 10 rounds to win the WBC Interim World Super Flyweight title, an important win for the former amateur star and a victory that seemed set to propel her to even greater things. Not the case. The injury took time to heal, but from last year, Fuchs has been ready to go, but the unbeaten American has been locked in a tsunami of boxing politics. Ruiz is now the WBC World Super Flyweight champion, the same Ruiz she beat already. In November, in a totally bewildering decision, Fuchs was overlooked. To fight for the vacant WBC bauble, the Canadian Alexis Kubicki was drafted in to fight Ruiz instead of Fuchs.
I don't understand. If she was already interim champion at the beginning of last year and the title became vacant, why didn't they just elevate her to champion like they did Mario Barrios?
Why indeed? Alexis Kubicki was drafted in to fight Ruiz despite losing in 7 one-sided rounds to the undisputed world flyweight champion Gabby Fundora just 2 months before that. If rankings still mean something, and they should, Kubicki shouldn't have been fighting for a world title just 2 months after suffering a comprehensive stoppage loss in a completely different division. There was a difference of opinion over why Fuchs wasn't granted her shot in November. Fuchs said she was ready to take the fight, but she was assured she would be mandated to fight the winner of Ruiz and Kubicki.
We're 3 months into the new year, and that hasn't happened.
Ruiz outpointed Kubicki over 10 rounds, and Fuchs believed her time would soon arrive, but still she waits. A provisional date in February was mooted. Ruiz apparently needed more time, and I am of the understanding that Ruiz and Fuchs were scheduled to fight on March 28th in California. Finally, Fuchs had her moment, or so she thought. Sadly, fate would intervene. Ruiz suffered an ankle injury in training,
which I don't believe. I believe they were just stalling out Fuchs because Adelaida had already lost to her.
So Fuchs ended up waiting even longer. I'm now told that Fuchs will finally get to fight Ruiz for the WBC World Super Flyweight title on June 27th. Fuchs hopes her near 2-year wait for her opportunity at a world title finally ends. Despite her elite amateur credentials, Fuchs has suffered long periods of frustration during her pro career. Her latest bout of inactivity isn't her first. Fuchs turned pro in 2022, but has only had 4 professional fights since then, a quite staggering statistic for such a talented fighter. After 2 fights in her first year as a pro, Fuchs only managed 1 fight in 2023, and the same the following year. The impressive win over Ruiz should have been a breakthrough performance, but injury and the somewhat baffling behind-closed-doors decision have more than stalled any momentum from the Ruiz fight, but the 38-year-old will hopefully and belatedly get a second opportunity to defeat Adelaida Ruiz, this time with the world title proper on the line. Ginny Fuchs will hope good things come to those who wait.
Though she shouldn't have had to. Understand, she became interim champion in the summer of 2024. At the start of 2025, if the title became vacant, it should have gone to her automatically.
There's no way it breaks down to where the girl Ginny beat gets to fight for the title before her without the WBC's involvement, because they's the ones sanctioned the fight. They screwed her over.
Yeah, she's royally screwed, because the Ruiz fight wasn't easy close to 2 years ago. Close to 2 years later, after a long stint of inactivity, it's not going to be easier. She might not win.
She's screwed.
She should have been elevated to full champion like Mario Barrios at welter, like Christian Mobili at super middle.
She's screwed.
So what's the fucking point in fighting in eliminators and becoming an interim champion if when the time comes, you don't get your opportunity, you don't get your shot? They just leave you in limbo in the wilderness.
Then why even go through this process? And why even have sanctioning bodies if they're not going to perform the one function, the one job they're here to do? Just the other day we talked about how the WBA screwed Shakram Giyasov over. Today we're talking about how the WBC screwed Ginny Fuchs over. It never ends.
It doesn't stop, and it's not going to until the fighters themselves wise up and stop going the WBC route. Stop going the WBA route. Stop playing their game and leaving your boxing career at their mercy, because that's what you're doing.
You want to fight for a title so bad? go the IBF route. They're not the best, but they'll make sure you get your title shot. They're strict when it comes to their mandatories. You don't like them? Go the WBO route.
They're pretty strict too. They're firm, but fair.
Out of the amateurs and into the pros, Virginia Fuchs was already up there in age. She didn't have a lot of time, so that she was ready. And last year could have come and gone without her either getting her belt or at least a shot to fight for it. It's criminal.
Because she can't get the time back.
From the same cockamamie organization that claims to care so much about the boxers.
Zuffa Boxing is so bad. Mauricio Suleiman will sit there with a straight face saying that shit. We've got to protect the boxers. Protect them from who? From you? This is why I'm not against Zuffa Boxing and what is their streamlined framework, an alternative.
That can't be any worse than the shit show we've been seeing all of these bleeding hearts that claim to care so much about the boxers clutching at their pearls, while stories like this don't get talked about on their channels.
Zuffa bad.
They don't talk about how Virginia Fuchs and Kenya Enriquez jointly have been screwed by the WBC, how the WBA is screwing Shakram Giyasov now.
It's virtue signaling.
It's not that they're against favoritism, they're not against corruption, it's whose corruption are we talking about, because the sport's been plenty corrupt before Zuffa came into it.
Speaking of Zuffa, per veteran boxing scribe Dan Rafael, breaking, per press release I just received, Washington, D.C. Today, the United States House of Representatives passed by voice vote Congressman Brian Jack's Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act, the first boxing legislation to pass the House of Representatives in 26 years. This will eventually be signed into law by the President, paving the way for Zuffa and any other promoter to create a UBO, crown their own champions, and do their own rankings.
Which, in my opinion, can't be any worse than what we've been seeing. So should we now expect unified boxing organizations to shoot out of the ground like bean sprouts?
No.
Because the only reason that Zuffa was able to form one is because of the conglomerate that is behind it. TKO, Sella, the UFC, WWE,
Paramount Plus.
Now you see the pushback that Zuffa's been getting from the boxing people for trying to form their own UBO, crown their own champions, sign fighters.
You think these other guys are going to want to have to go through that?
They're not. Least of all, not having the money behind them that Zuffa Boxing has behind it. It would be more trouble than it's worth for the other guys to try to form a UBO.
Then why Zuffa forming one?
Because the idea behind Zuffa Boxing is to let Dana White have an avenue to do in boxing what he did at the UFC, which comparatively is going to be a lot more difficult to do.
Why?
Him and the Fatata brothers get into mixed martial arts. It was a fledgling sport. Thus, in developing it, they were able to corner that market, whereas boxing isn't new. Boxing was around before you. Boxing has been around for decades, for years.
It's too big for just you guys to corner it, even with all your money.
But you can try. And given that boxing already hosts a broken system, I don't see a problem with somebody else coming into it with their own fresh ideas and seeing how those ideas pan out. They might not.
They might fail.
But it's worth a shot, as the existing framework doesn't service every fighter equally, even though it's supposed to. The sanctioning bodies themselves are intended to be an impartial mediator that establishes a pecking order. They're not supposed to cater to the special interests of promoters. The moment that starts happening, the moment they are rendered useless. But that is what's going on. That's what's been going on.
When you fast-track Ryan Garcia to a world title after he loses to Rolly Romero,
when Rolly, who already had a mandatory in the queue at the time you elevated him to full champion, is then allowed to go into a unification match while the mandatory is left in limbo.
you're not doing your job.
When Virginia Fuchs is deprived of her world title opportunity, and it's then given to the girl that she beat.
You're not doing your job.
So if you're not gonna do the one job you're intended to, who needs you? This is the system people are arguing in favor of. This is what people are trying to protect.
The misguided ones, yeah. The others, the people in the industry that are vehemently against Zuffa Boxing's entry into the sport, they want the sport to stay unregulated.
Because that gives them the wiggle room for all of their chicanery and backdoor deals.
What else?
Now that there's an alternative to the existing framework, some fighters might say, I'm sick of the WBC, I'm sick of the WBA, I'm sick of the politics, I'm sick of their bullshit, I'm going to Zuffa. And if enough fighters start to do that,
That's gonna cut into their revenue stream. And that's what they're really fighting to protect. Their ability to screw fighters over.
That's what it's all for. The sanctioning fees they siphon from all these fighters they've no intention of giving an opportunity.
And that's why they're against Zuffa, because Zuffa gives those fighters an alternative.
Where they didn't have one before. They didn't have a choice but to deal with the favoritism, with the politics, with the bullshit.
Weight world title, the IBF made that call after a couple of weeks. Everyone thought they were going to make the call in the day or two after the fight. They finally made it, but speaking to Jai's team today, they're going to sue the IBF. Basically, they'll launch legal action against the IBF. So that's sort of where it stands at the moment. Speaking to Mick Francis today, they're going to immediately launch legal action. He's obviously very pissed off. He got an email from the IBF at about 3 a.m. this morning, Australia time. And then obviously news leaks. So I think news had leaked on social media and wherever else before he had a chance to tell Jai. So I would imagine Jai's very, very angry. He's flying back to Australia today after a little holiday with his family after the fight. But that is the news. He's been stripped, but that they will sue the IBF over that action, basically.
What you spoke to Mick. What's his sort of grounds for the legal action? What sort of angle is he taking here?
Well, it's interesting because it's hard to nail down exactly what the IBF are talking about. I don't know how deep into the weeds you want to get with this, but it all comes down to who said what. There'll be an email trail. The IBF released a statement today saying that they've been dealing with a lawyer on behalf of Opetaia and also Sean Gibbons, going back and forth. And it seems to be, from what the IBF have said in their statement today, that this lawyer and Gibbons had sort of given assurances that the Zuffa title wouldn't be on the line, or wouldn't be promoted as a unification. And it would be characterized as a trophy or token of recognition. A trinket is another word they used in Fight Week. According to the IBF, it's under those grounds, those circumstances, that they sanctioned the fight in the first place. Then we get to the Friday press conference, and obviously the belt's up there next to the IBF title. And per the statement again, it became clear to the IBF that the Zuffa title was there. Even if they didn't use the terminology unification or whatever, it looked that way. So that's the reason they gave for withdrawing the sanction and then refunding the sanctioning fees as well. So,
well, we knew that was coming. The official word from Mick Francis, Jai's handler, is if they think we're just going to take this lying down, they're dreaming. Absolutely we'll be launching legal action. Jai's worked too hard for that title. He's bled for that title, and he's broken bones over it.
Reactions to the IBF's decision to strip Jai Opetaia are mixed. There are a lot of people who sympathize with him, but there are some who don't.
Like a Twitter user who goes by the name Bruce Kai. Bruce Kai said, "Zero sympathy. If titles meant so much, why on earth would you take a gamble on a promotional company like Zuffa, knowing what the ramifications are? Money, of course, but he also should have seen this coming clearly, for fuck's sake."
What guys like Bruce don't seem to understand is it's not a sanctioning body's job to dictate to fighters what promotional outfits they can sign to.
That is an abuse of power, and if you are behind the scenes working with that promotional outfit's rivals, that's collusion. You're attempting to augment the market by castigating fighters who might sign to Zuffa on the premise that it will cost them their alphabet title.
When did that become your job?
To dictate to the fighters what promoters they can sign to? But what if going to Zuffa gets those fighters more money than they've been making? You're saying that they should just leave all that money on the table?
That's collusion.
You know that Zuffa's got a lot of money and they want to sign a lot of fighters. Pay them well. So you want to cripple them by deterring those fighters from even going over there.
That's collusion.
And that is where Jai Opetaia's legal team will have a case. They have to come at it from that angle. It's not your job to tell fighters where they can go. Your job is sanctioning fights.
Well, they didn't sanction Jai's.
Perhaps not, but they waited only 2 or 3 days out from the fight to tell him. That was intentional, so that by the time you tell him it's too late. He's already gone through a whole training camp, the fight has been promoted, the undercard has been set.
It's too late to call it off.
And that's when you decided to do it, so you would have an excuse to strip him, because you were always going to strip him of that IBF title.
As soon as you heard that he signed to Zuffa,
You were always going to strip him of that IBF title. Not simply because he's carrying a belt that you don't recognize, but because of who his promoter is, and that is where you're crossing the line.
that's not your job.
The IBF will center their defense around the Zuffa belt, the trinket that he picked up. At which point, all Jai Opetaia's legal team has to do is point out that they never stripped anybody for holding the IBO. They don't recognize that belt either, but they never gave anyone an ultimatum for holding it alongside theirs. So why are they doing this now?
Because of who Jai's promoter is.
It's the real reason they stripped him. Even if Jai Opetaia was going to be allowed to pursue the other sanctioning body titles, the sanctioning bodies know that other fighters at Zuffa,
Some of those guys weren't going to give you 3% out of their purse anymore. I don't expect you to be happy about it.
but Jai Opetaia did. He paid the sanctioning fee, so you've no real reason to strip him. No good one.
Zuffa's got friends in high places. Enough that the Muhammad Ali Revival Act has been passed.
Trifle with them at your peril. You can make this about the trinket title as much as you like. The inconsistencies in your decision-making won't be hard to point out. The alphabet organizations have been allowed to do whatever they wish to based on their own bylaws that they write themselves, because who's going to police them?
This changes things.
The fighters don't have to put up with you and your cockamamie decisions and sanctioning fees anymore. It's not my intention to sell you Zuffa Boxing's idea. I'm just telling you what they're doing and why they're doing it.
This is not about a trinket title. This is about the sanctioning bodies being angry that Zuffa might cut into their revenue stream by taking fighters they were exploiting away.
Now, who you think is the bad guy in a story like that? I'll leave such judgments up to you.
You decide.
But that's what it is. It's not simply about Jai picking up the Zuffa belt. It's about a little bit more than just that.